All right, guys. So I'm going to cover this topic off of the consequences of lust. So I ran into a friend of a friend who is essentially a new acquaintance for me and disclosed some information about someone that I'm just getting to know more as a friend, and shared something where, say, in a professional or health coaching or personal trainer or other professional job roles, is called confidential discretion. So in other words, what this basically means is, say like New York talk, like don't talk about my business. Don't be sharing my business to nobody. It's where, say, whatever I share to you and whatever you share to me is between one another. So this is an example of practice that needs to be done more often. But essentially, the angle where I'm trying to get to of the example for some consequences for young men or 20s, 30s, engaging in irresponsible, lustful activity, behavior, say, for example, sleeping with a lot of multiple women, is impregnating them. So, and it's always good to have bad examples of people of who not to be like. So I'll give you off of two examples. First example, I personally have a cousin. He's a first cousin once removed, or second cousin, who has basically 5 children, or is it 6 children? It's either 5 or 6 children from 3 different women. Yeah, so now mind you, this is an individual that is not as, he's older than me by about 8 to 10 years, and he's not as spiritually mature, or mature in a sense. So again, when we're talking spiritual, we're talking of mental and heart, emotional, which is a combination of the soul, which is within us, and then externally, spiritually, because we are a soul in a physical vessel, that's our body, where we're trying to get into our Holy Spirit towards God. That's why, like they say, the crown is the spirit, the higher consciousness, say from the chakras perspective, point of view. So, and I'm trying to talk as clearly as I can because I've got the ice cream truck's engines turned on. So this is an example of the world trying to prevent me from sharing this important message for young adults that need to hear this. So imagine you're in your 20s or 30s and you have 5 to 6 children from 3 different women. Just put yourself in those shoes. Sounds tough, right? Sounds like, wow, you have some responsibilities to do, to take care of. The other thing that I understand that some men don't realize, recognize, understand, or don't care about is that eventually, karma, if, say, you never participate in the baby mama nor child's life, it's going to come back to you as karma, because you essentially created a being, a human being, and I mean, that child can grow up in three perspectives, but two are the worst. Two the worst examples would be example of that child engaging in violent criminal activity, which essentially would lead them into, say, for example, prison, and or poor severe mental health, where they will essentially be continually going to psychiatric help, say hospitals, constantly going to hospitals. And then of course there's the other case where they blossom and flourish without having a father figure, but still have a lot of resentment. So like one example would be like Eminem and or Oprah in that sense, but those are rare cases, even though there are present cases. But these are the three roots. And the responsible thing as a male man, mature man, to do is to make an effort to be there for that child that they created with this woman for engaging in that activity. And I know that might be hard for other guys to discuss, share, but think of it like this, guys. What if you grew up without a father? Wouldn't you want that father to be there teaching you some stuff? I am a example of this testimony because I grew up without a father. I'm basically a bastard. I'm an illegitimate child. And that's what separates me from my cousins, because they have their uncles. So I grew up with my uncles, but not with my father, with my biological dad around, really. I mean, he was here and there every so often. But anyways, the focus is not about my dad, but it's essentially sharing that I am an example of that illegitimate child. And so, and before I became a newborn Christian, which is essentially where you give your life to Christ and you initially willingly want to get baptized. So I got baptized 3 years ago, three Decembers ago. And so essentially I'm a newborn Christian, which essentially means that I have a new life thanks to Jesus Christ. So in my past life, I can definitely say that because of me engaging in these lustful sexual activities in my 20s, I could have basically been a father of 4 to 5 kids, but they got aborted through abortion or Plan B. So I am lucky that I am not a father from 4 to 5 children out of being irresponsible and lustful activity with three different women. And whereas one, the protection broke, the rubber broke. I remember 2 or 3 times. So that's why I'm like 4 or 5. I don't. But I remind myself this, as well as my cousin, as 2 examples of be very cautious guys, as well as myself, in who you have these sexual relations with. And very important, you don't have to go to home base first. Think of it like baseball. There's first base, second base, third base. First base is like making out. Second base is like foreplay. Third base is more oral. I'm not going to discuss it based on the platforms I'm at, but the private parts. And then, intercourse, home plate. So these are examples on how you can strategically and progressively build yourself those activities where you're essentially delaying the gratification. And I advise guys that it's better that you learn to do this with whoever woman is in your life, say if you're in a relationship and or developing a relationship with this woman, because when you realize whether this person is someone you'd want to be with long term, it's so much better to engage in those kinds of activities with, and you're being more responsible and more mature about it. So this is something I highly recommend, guys. And God forbid you sleep with a woman and you get her pregnant, and then you realize that she's a nutcase or she's crazy or whatever disaligns you from her, where you guys do not have the same core values or the same walks of life. It's just gonna be very difficult for you. It's gonna feel like punishment because of this one activity that you did with this woman that will affect you for the rest of your life because of the creation of a child. So, and then sadly and unfortunately, that that baby mother to this child can also have resentment towards that child because of reminders of you, the father, where that child can have a bad relationship with their mother. And it's because of indirectly your involvement with this woman. So yeah, guys, these are examples of consequences of lust, lustful activity, sexual activity. Please try your best to delay that gratification of sexual intercourse. I highly recommend it. And try your best to go to the bases so that you can get to know your partner on a fundamental level that is mentally, emotionally, as in the heart, feelings, spiritually, because you want her to be a godly woman. If she is not a woman who believes in God, who aligns with God, she's essentially a goddess or wants to be a goddess. And that is a woman who will try to take advantage of you. And you do not want that. You do not want that in your life. That's a succubus, essentially. So, yeah. All right, guys. I hope you guys really absorb and retain what I've shared. For those needing to hear this, if you know someone that needs to hear this kind of conversation, please share it. And otherwise, have a blessed day and God bless you.